All right, so now we're going to talk about Esther 2. In Esther 2, we meet a couple of the main characters of the story. So obviously we've already met Vashti, the queen. We've already met Ahasuerus, the king. Now, remember, at the end of chapter 1, he has gotten rid of Vashti. She is no longer queen. And, they put this edict out saying that women can't talk back to the men and all this other stuff. So now we come into chapter 2. And chapter 2 is an ancient form, if I can steal this from another preacher, is an ancient form of The Bachelor. So you have the king who now, once his wrath, it says at the end of the chapter 1, once his wrath is appeased, now realizes he needs to have a queen. So he puts on this bachelor type thing where they take the chosen women, the women who are the hottest to him or to this guy that he's assigned to do this, and they take them to this house and they what they call the purify them for 12 months. In other words, they give them treatments, they give them skin treatments and all that different stuff to make them as beautiful as possible. And then they all go in with the king and they have sex with the king. And whichever one pleases the king the most, he will choose that lady then to be his queen. Well, Esther, from the beginning of it, now we're going to meet Mordecai in a second. We'll talk about him. But from the beginning of this is brought away into it. It says she was led into it. So it wasn't like she was like, I'll go. It was they chose you and you were kind of forced to go in there. But this is a very wrong situation, obviously. I mean, the fact that the king would do this and once they had their night with the king, then they were sent to the concubine house, which the concubines back in that day, if the king was bored with the queen, he'd just say, bring me one of the concubines for tonight. And so it was a wicked, godless, immoral society that was going on. And Esther now has been forced into this. Well, then in the middle of the chapter, after she's kind of going through this process, you meet Mordecai. And Mordecai is her cousin, but her parents died. Mordecai is a lot older than she is. And so he raises her as her own. So she's almost like his daughter. Well, Mordecai is always outside of the gate of the king's house trying to hear what's going on with Esther, which, by the way, as a man, he should have been like, I would have been fighting for my daughter. There's no way some king is going to take my daughter for that reason. But anyways, so he's trying to hear what's going on. He's sitting in the king's gate where all the politics were discussed and things, trying to keep in track of what's going on with Esther. Well, at the end of chapter 2, so now Esther has been pleasing to the king. She's pleased the eunuch that was over top as far as he had respect for her because she handled herself well and, she had respect for him and those things. So she has literally just, everybody who looked at her, I think it says that she obtained favor in the sight of all who saw her. So she pretty much was just a likable person. Well, at the end of chapter 2, you have the king chooses Esther. He makes a great feast for her now that she is queen. Well, during that time period, remember Mordecai's in the gate where all the politics and discussions are happening, and he hears about these two guys who are going to kill the king. Well, he tells Esther, he tells kind of like the hierarchy, he goes up, they find out that it's true, they hang the two guys that were coming up with this plan, and therefore squelch this plan from killing the king. That's going to be very important later on in the story. Very important. So keep that in mind that Mordecai is the one who discovers this plot to kill the king. But at the end of the chapter 2, what we know is Vashti is no longer queen. Ahasuerus chooses Esther as his queen, and Mordecai is linked into that family by raising Esther. All right? And then chapter 3, we're getting into some other things here tomorrow. So come back tomorrow.